My name is Angelica McGee, and I'm with
Alexandra
with the Samuel Proctor Oral History Program. Today is May 27th, 2023, and we are interviewing
Marg Chauvin
and Bill Messer.
Excellent. First question, how did you first hear about the Florida Folk Festival?
For me, I'd been out of the state for a while, and when I returned, I started learning to play the Celtic harp, and after about 2 years, Miss Patty Rang, friend of mine in St. Augustine, said, "You need to go to the Florida Folk Festival and play." And somehow she convinced me to apply, and I did, and I was accepted. And so I guess it was about '89 was the first time that I heard of it and started coming. And so that was my introduction to it. However, years later, I was talking to my mom, and she said, "Oh yes, we went there one of the first years, and we packed you and your baby sister up, and your great-grandmother and your grandmother and my dad and myself, and we all went over to one of the first ones because they were celebrating my some of the family history." So I think it might have been the very first one, I'm not sure, but that's what we think.
What about you?
I was involved in folk music in South Florida, Southeast Florida, Fort Lauderdale, and so I started hearing about it. So I started coming up in the late '80s.
What attracted you to it?
The folk music.
Tell me about your first Florida Folk Festival. Well, I guess you did, but what was it like, your first one?
The first one that I remember was just such an interesting experience. I was pretty much a very green musician, but fairly decent at what I was doing. And you came in, and it was an open campground. Everybody pitched their tents, and there was so much music around, and I met so many wonderful people and sat in with groups. It was just overwhelming and addictive.
What about you?
I came in with some friends, and I ended up putting a blanket down by the gazebo stage and staying there all day long.
So could you tell us more about the Florida Folk Festival community?
It is a community. It's almost a family gathering that happens, a family reunion that happens once a year. And sometimes you don't see people except for once a year. And so it makes it extremely special. You have bonds with people, you do special things for people. I recall a young man when I used to contra dance out there many years ago, and he started at about 3 years old contra dancing with me, and 5 and 7, and he got to be about 7, and one year he looked at his dad and said, "Oh, if you want to learn to dance, go dance with her." And I was really sorry when year I came back and he wasn't here. So it is a family community that you keep coming back for.
Yeah, I agree with that. I call it a folk family reunion.
So what are some other traditions that you have when you come to the Florida Folk Festival?
My. Well, these days we volunteer and help set it up, and we've been doing that now for 10 years. Well, not the COVID years, the online years, but we've done it all the
Yeah, we come 2 months early.
And help set that up. So our traditions have really changed, and I've seen a lot of changes over the years. I think the Thursday night potluck has been a big trend, big tradition of kind of the official start for the participants. And it's moved from location to location over the years, but it's the time that people get together. They kind of sit down, have a meal together, and reconnect, and then from there on out, we're all working hard the whole festival.
That's
what about you?
Pretty much. The question was?
It was basically what are some traditions that you have, when you come to the Florida Folk Festival?
Well, of course, the camping. We like coming here and hanging out with all the musicians in the campground, which is very magical. If you've been in there, you'll see go from campsite to campsite, people playing music, different styles. I saw some African drummers in there just a little while ago. It's pretty interesting.
I think also the food court, when we don't have quite as many churches coming in with all the smoked mullet and the fried chicken, but that has been a big tradition. And as we have fewer traditional food vendors down there, and as the face of the festival changes, we have to change with it. But so many people just gathered down there also as a place and looking forward to that type of experience.
If you had to create a family motto for the festival, what would it be?
Wow, that's a tough one. It's going to take us.
Just share the love. Share the love of the music.
Yeah, probably.
And love of Florida. It's part of the reason we're here is the love of Florida.
I guess it's the kind of place where you can feel safe and people don't worry if their children are unsupervised by themselves, because they have a whole community that will supervise them. And people don't get upset generally here if a child is doing something incorrectly, or a youth, and you point it out to them or take them by the hand and lead them back to their parents. They're fine with that. So it's more of a family than being concerned about
strangers.
Issues and strangers, yeah.
Who do you look forward to seeing the most every year?
So everyone, I tell you, I have so many treasured friends here. Everyone from the staff, I'm always happy to see the staff and appreciate their support, to the chair heads that help organize and run the festival, down to the people that help clean the bathrooms and get to see the AmeriCorps that come in. So, it's hard to say. I have friends on all levels, even the vendors.
Yeah, that's a good answer for what you ask.
So I wanted to know a little bit more about your first performance at the festival and your experience with the music.
Well, my first one was playing the Celtic harp solo. And the first one that I recall was, if you're talking about my personal performance, then I vividly recall playing down in the Azalea Gardens, which were not used for many years, and now we have the workshops down there, workshop tent 1 and 2. And I recall playing down there in the tent, and it was just so idyllic. It was really beautiful. And trying to explain to people about the harp and playing tunes, and being a little afraid that I wouldn't remember the tunes and how they went, because by the time that time I was pretty green to the instrument and pretty new, and so I didn't have as much performance experience, as many years and as many tunes and as many mistakes and recoveries. So that's one of the things that I recall. Another one I recall were the workshops that we used to have underneath those big oaks in front of the museum. And that was idyllic, and we had 2 big workshop tents that used to happen there. And we had a lot of harp workshops back then. It was great. We had a big Celtic harp community. So I remember those.
I'll never forget my first time playing here. I'm not normally a player. I don't play out in front of people. So we started dating, and she said, "You need to back me up." So I started doing that. So the first time here, we're playing along, and I'm looking at my watch, and we got to be overtime. We're just 10 minutes into a 30-minute set.
So you guys met at the festival?
Gamble Rogers Festival. We probably met here too.
I think we did,
Yeah.
because I needed
We were in the same community for a long time.
I needed to catch a ride. I had a pretty good sized harp, and somebody said, "Oh, go over there and get Billy. He's driving a cart." And by the way, I said, "Where is he?" "Oh, you'll find his sister, Connie, and she feeds you." So I went over there, and true to life, Connie says, "Here, have something to eat. Billy will be here in a few minutes." So he came by and picked me up in the cart, and I said, "No, remember, it's a long walk back, so if I'm only up here for a half hour, can you please come and pick me back up? Oh yeah, sure, I'll be there. Half hour afterwards, I'm standing there.
Didn't make it.
Nobody there. Finally, I said, well, I guess I'm going to have to lug this thing back to the campground by myself. Later, I saw him, and he says, oh, I forgot I was driving away, whoever the big star, John Anderson. I was taking them on a tour. And I said, oh, shoot. You can tell where his priorities were. Yeah, I know. And so here we are 30 years later together.
Yeah, we've been coming here over 30 years.
What songs would be in the Florida Folk Family Songbook?
Oh, one of my favorites, probably will do that today, is one by Robin Plitt, and it's Florida Home, and it talks about being away and coming back to Florida, and we do that every year, and I think it's one of my absolute favorites. Another one is
Eddie's tune.
Eddie Parshall's tune called the Swanee Symphony, which describes the park, describes the river, and describes the festival. I mean, it just encapsulates the whole thing. Those are probably my two favorite songs, and I didn't write either one of them.
Yeah, the Eddie Parshall song, Swanee Symphony, is probably my best favorite about the river, the festival, the music.
So how would you say the Florida Folk Festival has changed since you started coming and now, like the present day?
It's bigger. That's one thing.
By a lot.
I'd say quite a bit. I think when I first started, there were maybe 5 or 6 stages, possibly, and fewer vendors, and it's grown over the years.
Now there's 16.
The cultural area, I mean, different areas have moved from one place to another. The population, of course, the people that I came in with are all getting older, but I see that we have a bigger influx of ethnicity and as the state changes, and we have different groups coming in. I think that's reflected even more in the folk life area and in the music, and I think that's fabulous. I saw it go from a folk to a little more bluegrass focus, and now it's more back to, and through a Celtic focus, and now we're back to more of a folk focus. But we're broadening out with different types, you know, more African drums, more Cuban music.
And this year the Sacred Steel people
And the Sacred Steel are down in the, down at the end, the very bottom of the park, and they have a huge setup and very fascinating. So I think that's a healthy and a good movement to incorporating where Florida is today rather than where it was 70 years ago.
What about you?
I echo what she says there.
Yeah, so could you tell us about the Florida Folk Festival food? I was wondering about that.
You want to go first?
Well, it's been tradition, like she mentioned, about the food court down near the marble stage. A lot of the local black churches would come in and set up what I call country food. And you can get smoked mullet, collard greens, grits, all the stuff I was raised on.
What's a smoked mullet?
Mullet's a fish. And it's mainly a bait fish, but being Floridian, I've always ate it, so.
Actually,
And if you haven't been down there, try it. You'll be hooked.
and then we have a lot of other ethnic foods. There was a lady that did wonderful Jamaican food, but I always look forward to her sorrel tea, and I just had to go and her ginger tea. And so I would be, she actually, even when you're said, here, use this jug and keep bringing it back to me over and over to refill it. So, because I bought so frequently from her. So I like that. She's not here anymore. We have people that, different vendors come and go, like I said. Now we have some empanada people. We've had several more American, but they're still very healthy style of food where they have the sauteed vegetables and the hamburgers and the hot dogs and the chicken and the beans and the rice kind of thing. We have several of those and burritos, those type. And they've been here over the years and they have just same vendors and they've changed a little bit. And of course our coffee vendors, and they do keep us going.
What valuable lessons have you learned from other folk festival family members?
Patience.
Generosity.
Yeah.
Unconditional love. I think those are things that we know and we do practice. I mean, people in general, but this community, there's so much love and so much unconditional love and so much cooperation that when you come here, if you've kind of been pressured outside, all of a sudden you're in this very loving, giving community, and it regenerates you so that when you go out, you're sharing that with everybody else.
That even goes to the big stars that come here.
Yeah.
After they've come here, like Billy Dean came here as the big star, country star, and the next year he was in shorts and sandals saying, I'm really a folkie. And he's been coming for 10 years just to be a part of the group.
So I think it's almost like the outside world goes away for a little bit and everybody comes in and opens up and then, like I said, recharges, and then we all go back out and spread that.
So how has, well, going from that last question, how would you say like those impacts and those connections from the festival, how would you say that plays out like in the outside world or when you interact like with other people?
I think first of all, you sing the praises of the festival, and not just the Florida Folk Festival, other associated festivals. And if you see somebody on the street, you know, maybe I'm in North Carolina and see somebody up there vacationing, or maybe I've gone across the state and see somebody. You know, you give them a big hug. It's not like it's a stranger, and it looks so strange that, you know, here's these people just, you know, kind of running together and hugging out there in the middle. But you do things like that. Plus, you keep in touch with people over the year. And if somebody needs some help, it spreads throughout the community. It used to be by word of mouth or phone or email, and now we've got text and all the other social media.
Pretty much the same.
What is a typical day like for you at the festival?
It's a little bit different for both of us.
Yeah. We work so hard on putting the festival together ahead of time, so we can't help but keep an eye out what things are going. If something needs to get done, we jump in there and do it, even though we're not set up to do it.
Yeah, we
but
get
then
called.
we're also playing music too. So.
Yeah, I get text messages or calls. Hey, this wasn't done, or where's this? So you know that does happen, but that's because we work as a volunteer before the festival and help set it up. Before then, it was get up, practice for your set, you know, get dressed, get the right attire on.
Drink lots of coffee.
And then go down to, you know, do your set, hang out, try and support some of the jam tents or the workshops that aren't attended very well. So you would go to those and participate in those, because you know, nobody likes to give a jam or a workshop and be the only people there. So or if a stage, you know, you would help out people with their stages as much as possible. Then go back to the campground and play some tunes, share some food, and crash out and do the whole thing again the next day.
Is there an achievement or contribution that you've made to the folk festival that you're most proud of?
Oh, wow.
Good question.
I'm not a person that thinks about those contributions. It's just giving and doing, and being service is just part of my life. So I don't think about changes that have come about. But I guess for years I did help organize and run a harp workshop here to educate people on the Celtic harp and help recruit people to come in and perform. Bill even is better with recruiting that and recruiting vendors to come. And he's always talking it up. I was always saying, you know, here it is, here's the Florida Folk Festival. Here, for a long time we had brochures in the car. Here's a brochure, here it is, apply by this date. So Bill is very, very active with that. But I spoke for you, so
Sorry.
Do you have another contribution?
I was talking or thinking about the several hundred hours we put in before the festival even starts. And years ago, I used to sponsor one of the stages with somebody else. And then when excuse me, what's that?
What does sponsoring the stage mean?
I paid about $600 for a stage.
For the chant
The chant and the sound man.
and sound man, yeah, sound crew. That's back when it was less expensive.
Yeah, and I was working.
What is your favorite stage at the festival?
You know, I guess, I don't know if it's the old, I guess the old marble stage has been a standby forever because I remember it being one of the few stages. It was the stage that we contra-danced on, heaven forbid, because the ground, it was so hard, but you know, before we had dance stages and other things. So that's one of my favorites in there. I have many fond memories of performing in the tower, and and I have to say maybe the Seminole stage. I know you asked for one and here's several. The Seminole stage, because it is acoustic, as is the gazebo stage. And I recall one time some kids came up and they said, oh, we're playing the Seminole stage. And I said, oh, okay, well, you're gonna really like that. I forget what I was doing with them. And I said, you're gonna really like that, and it's an acoustic stage. What do you mean? I said, no sound gear. We've never played without microphones. I said, you're gonna really like this. I said, because it's a total different experience. So I like that because it's intimate.
My favorite stage would be this gazebo stage. It's all Florida music. And it's your originals music from Florida.
So what would you say to like somebody who's never been to the festival? Like we kind of like alluded to this before, but like if you're talking to somebody who's never been or they just haven't heard of it, like what are the takeaways that you tell them, like your hook to get them to go?
Bill and I say different things generally on this one. I tell them it's a cultural experience, and I say, yes, we have music, we have dance, we have food, we have the folk life area, which is so educational with all the different cultures that change every year, and you get to experience some of the foods and the traditions and the artistry. And I usually, you know, point out to them that some of those areas that some of the memories from the folk life area were the Greek dancing and the Greek food. They had and then there was a Scottish festival one year over there, and now, and then one year it was kumquats, you know, and just all the different experiences. One year there were clowns from the former Ringing Brother and the different circuses, and they explained what being a clown was like and how the makeup and everything. And those are experiences you don't find everywhere. And then I also talk about this craft area where I learned about the Cuban bird cage making and different experiences like that that you just can't find other places, and they leave a memory in your mind. So to me it's a cultural experience as much as anything else.
And I always tell people this is the largest celebration of Florida cultures and Florida history. We have cultures from all around the world that come here, that move here to Florida. So we celebrate all of that.
What's the most memorable gift anyone has ever given you at the festival?
You have one, Billy?
No, I don't have a gift.
trying to think here. we get a lot of recognition from people, and that's a gift. Probably some small. I mean, I remember different things. You know, a friend of mine had made a vest that I felt was very pretty, and she said, "Well, you're the only one that would wear it." And so, you know, I remember I said, "Okay."
She was a vendor.
She didn't really give it to me. I said, "Well, that's kind of pricey." She said, "Oh, well, I'll give it to you for this amount." And I said, "Well, I don't have that. Let me write you a check." A year later, she said, "You never noticed I never cashed your check." I mean, those kinds of things are gifts in a special way, and I get those from other people that said, "Oh, you know, here, have a bowl of soup," or "I've got this brownie," or whatever it is. So those are things that you don't really anticipate. Maybe you don't think of them as a gift right off, but that helping, that love, that support that comes from different people.
Yeah, I've never been given a gift, so it's...
What is your favorite festival memory?
You got one?
I'm thinking. We do a lot of editing.
They'll have to. You know, there's so many memories. It's really hard.
Got one.
You have one?
Yeah.
Go for it, because I have too many.
The Seminole chief, James Billy, he was walking down the road carrying a big mullet, smoked mullet in his hand, barefooted, got his pants rolled up almost to his knees. He's walking along, taking a snatch of mullet and eating it, walking down the road.
Well, I guess on that one, if we go back there, I always remember I was over in the folk life area one day, and these local kids come in a truck, and they had a gator in the back of the truck, and they bring this alligator, in the back of their pickup and bring it into the folk life area because they wanted everybody to see the alligator. And I thought that was probably totally inappropriate, but it was very interesting and very typical of the kinds of happenings or experiences you might see at the festival. Not so much these days, but that was quite a few years back, and they pulled it off.
Yeah, thinking about the alligator story, I don't know, like how do people's personalities kind of like shine through, like when they perform or when they have their own space?
You know?
Personalities, huh?
There's so much love and appreciation here. And a few people aren't as dramatic as others in it, but it still comes through. And I think that's the one thing I see. There's maybe a sparkle. People in their eyes, people may be tired, but they're always willing to sit there and give you those few minutes that you need. You know, well, I've got to make it to a stage, but come with me and talk to me, or, you know, I've got 5 minutes, sit down here. Oh, you need a shirt, or you need a pair of socks, or you need toothpaste, or whatever it is. Here it is. You can, you know, here it is for you. I guess that's the way I think of it. Again, it's just that openness that I love coming back.
Yeah, that's good enough for me, that answer.
This is a big question, but how has your life been impacted by the festival?
It's been a big part of the life for over 30 years, so even right now I'm playing music with her on stage, so that's a big impact.
Yeah, it's pretty overshadowing. You think about it a lot during the year. I think one of the big impacts are the connections that you make, the people that you see, and what you do to help others.
I have to, sorry,
Can
take a
you
break.
go outside, please?
Gene,
Please come
I'm
on.
involved in an interview right now. I'll give a call back in 10 minutes.
Yes, we just checked in, so.
Okay.
No problem.
Okay, sorry, my brother.
So, now I forget the question. I'm sorry.
Just how has your life been impacted?
Okay, how's my life been impacted by the festival?
Yes.
Okay. I think it gives me something, a goal to look forward to. And again, it's the personal connections and the memories that allow me to grow. And I think growth has been the number one impact. Personal growth, musical growth, and I guess educational growth. It's something that you draw on all the time without realizing it.
So what would you like your future, like your festival kind of like legacy to be like, kind of going off that last question, or like, thinking about how you want young people to carry on the legacy of the festival and things like that?
I would like to see the youth come in and get inspired by it. I think that quite often, for many people, if they start out young, then you reach a point between the 20s and maybe 35 that you're busy with a career or you're busy raising a family. You don't always have the time to devote to come. And I'd like to see them come. I see a few that still are making the time to get here, but not every, I don't expect everyone. But then I would hope that from the age of 35 or 40 on, that they come back and they pick up where we picked up for others and where others have to pick up for us now. And I see it as a service. It's a service. It's as much as anything else, although I talk about the wonderful community that we have, I think it's a service that you feel you have a obligation, in some respects, to carry that tradition on and keep it going till somebody else comes on and takes it. And for in the past 10 years, for Bill and myself, it's been to come in early and help get the festival off the ground. Something we actually, we've done before, we knew how to do when we walked in here. So it was to help the rangers and the staff get everything done so that it looks seamless and moves easily. And, a big operation, it takes a lot of people. And so I think that would be what I would like to see, and my legacy would be to have somebody come in and step in and keep that going.
Repeat the question.
Basically, what would you like your festival legacy to look like, especially with younger generations who may come here as children and continue coming here? Like, what would you want the legacy to look like for future generations?
I would like for them to be able to jump in and help the festival too. Like she said, it takes a lot of manpower to put this festival together. So I hope people have the abilities and the willingness to go out and work for the festival and help it go on.
Is there any wisdom you'd like to pass on to younger generations?
Don't worry about working hard, just get the job done.
You?
I think that probably sums it up, yeah.
What values would you like to hand down to them?
Service.
Yeah, service.
Service to others, because in that giving, you get back. You get back so much more than you give.
Last question, are there any questions you wish I had asked that I didn't?
You guys are pretty good.
I can't think of anything. Y'all did a good job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. You made it very easy.
No, that's everything.
Thanks so much.
Thank you so much.